I'm throwing the gauntlet down to you really here, because a lot of people out there are very, very confused about political speak, so to speak, yeah? One of the things that you politicians suffer with is that I think you're mingling amongst each other too much and talking amongst each other too much in the language which you lot seem to understand but no one else outside does. I think you do yourself a good favour if we could try and unravel some of the events of recent months in simple terms, so the average bloke in the street, including me, to be perfectly frank with you, understands what's going on.
Well, I remember doing the masterclass with you, and I came around the country and did some of the events with you in the lead. And what was really interesting to me was that people came up and they all had their ideas. You didn't give a speech. People came up, they all had their ideas, and you were pretty blunt with people. If it was a bad idea, you said, go away and think about it. This is not going to work. And I think we do need a lot of blunt speaking at the moment, plain speaking. Look, something happened in America. It then spread across to Europe and to Britain. And now it's engulfing the whole world. And it's quite unique. It's the first global financial crisis, and I think people got to know what it means, and I want to explain that.
Did you ever, in your wildest dreams, believe that you were going to walk into this hornet's nest as far as the financial crisis is concerned?
No, because, you know, when you think inflation's been quite low and interest rates are quite low, then suddenly you've got this shock coming out of America, and you've got to deal with it. But that's one of the challenges of being in this job. You've got to deal with the problem.
Generally, why have we in England got this problem? I mean, what's it got to do with America?
Well, if your bank or your building society ends up owning a whole series of products or investments or assets, call it what you like, that turn out to be totally worthless, then it's going to have an effect on your bank. And what's actually happened is, out of America, a lot of people were persuaded to buy mortgages. They couldn't pay for them. Nobody quite knew when they bought these mortgage products and bought them on and on and on, so they ended up in Europe, that the products they were buying were totally worthless.
So how'd that work then? You're talking about American citizens, for example, were sold mortgages that they couldn't pay for.
Exactly. And
that sounds a bit dodgy to me.
It was a bit of a problem because lots of this was going on, and then they parcelled them up. So you had, you know, thousands of mortgages. And some of our British banks made mistakes, like one that I know of wasn't only buying these products for last year and this year, they'd contracted to buy them for years ahead. So they're spending hundreds of millions of pounds of their own customers' money buying products that they thought were going to make them a big profit, but were absolutely worthless.
So buying packages of mortgages, just like someone like me would have bought ordinary products like televisions or VCRs. Didn't they ask what they're buying? Because, you know, all I can say is this: my history of lending money from banks is they want to know the ins and outs of the backside of a duck, really. Every single thing. They go through all this due diligence stuff.
But because it was based on housing and property, the banks thought the values of property and of houses would keep going up, and therefore they thought it was a valuable product and not a worthless product.
Are you laying the blame of the British banking crisis on America, or do you think there's other reasons?
No, America has accepted a great deal of responsibility. Even the Treasury Secretary in America has said that America has made huge mistakes. But there was another problem as well, which is we're a global financial system. You know, so everything is flowing around the world. You know, in your companies and everything else, you're buying from different countries. It's global. Capital and money is flowing across frontiers all the time. So you've got to have some form of global oversight of the system, and we didn't have that. I've been pressing for that for years. We're now going to get it, but we didn't have it.
It seems to me that in the past 5 or 6 years or so, that there's an environment being created now where the banks are just wheeler dealers, wheeling and dealing and lending out money and borrowing from this one and borrowing from that one. Question I ask is, why was this allowed to happen?
I think the main thing is they become international players as well, so that they're operating in every continent of the world and not just in Britain. And then there was one of the bankers who said, if other people are dancing, you've got to dance as well. And what actually happened was the banks started taking risks that were far greater than the risks that they should have been taking. Now the problem is the opposite, because banks are risk averse at the moment and not taking risks that they should be taking.
There was an era in the commercial real estate market where it was just, I couldn't work out what was going on. Right? Prices of things were going through the roof. Banks were lending virtually 95 to 97%. That can't be right.
Well,
But you must have seen that, though. You must have seen that while you were Chancellor. Surely those alarm bells should have been ringing for you also.
Well, I'm angry at the behaviour of banks because we did not know what was actually happening behind the scenes. We did not know that they were operating all these investment vehicles. So it wasn't being reflected fully on the original balance sheet of the banks. And we did not know just how much risk was being taken on from, let's see, these subprime mortgages in the States. So yes, the system has got to be improved, and it will be improved. Our problem at the moment, however, is that banks, having been so willing to lend, are now totally unwilling to lend.
That is typical. You go from one extreme to the other.
And that's what we've got to do something about.